You have arrived at your destination.
That's right, Wildlings. You have arrived at your destination, and it's time to rock and roll all night and podcast every Tuesday right here on the Sean vs. Wild podcast. And you guys know me. I'm your host, as always, the man, the myth, the Sean Thriller Smith, the guy putting rad back into talk radio. And speaking of rad, I am back this week with part 2 of my conversation with Caleb Hanks. What a rad guy. The guy's a natural, such a great guest. I'm a huge fan of his work. And not only with his graphic novel and his graphic design work, but his music. And he's just a great friend to me, and I've enjoyed all the years of friendship that we've had. He's just a rad guy. Caleb, big shout out to you, buddy. I'm so excited to bring you guys part 2. This one's going to be a lot more laid back of a conversation. We're going to be chatting all about the good old days, some fun tour stories and pop culture, things we like, and all that good sort of thing. So you're definitely not going to want to check that out. It's going to be a good one. And if you haven't checked out part 1 yet, dude, what are you waiting for? Go back, check out part 1 from last week. You got part 2 coming at you right now. But before I do that, I got to thank my awesome sponsors here for the show. I'm talking about Audiophile Inc. Audiophile Inc., the OG sponsor here. They're going to take care of all your screen printing needs. So if you have a podcast or a band or an idea or a business and you got to get your shit screen printed, Audiophile Inc. is going to get you taken care of. And Shane is going to give you the best price in town, no matter what town you live in, because he's going to ship to all 50 nifty United States. So everybody always asks me, they're like, Sean, where do your sweatshirts are awesome or your t-shirts are cool. Where do you get these done? I get all of them done at audiophileinc.com. So AUDIOPHILEINK.com. Ask for Shane. Tell him the Wild Man sent you, and he's going to get you set up. Also, thanks to my newest sponsor at Amazon, at Audible. Okay, so Audible's an Amazon company, and they're going to set you up with a free 30-day trial just for listening to the Sean vs. Wild podcast. All you got to do is go to audibletrial.com/Sean vs. Wild. audibletrial.com/Sean vs. Wild. Sign up for your free 30 days. They have over 180,000 audiobooks for you to choose from, and I love the service. I use it, of course. I use it every month, but I get so much joy out of audiobooks. I would highly recommend you checking it out. Also, too, if you want to support the show, that's a great way because you get a free audiobook, whether you keep the service or not. And when you sign up, they're going to give me some money so I can keep the lights on here at the Smithsonian. It's very important to have lights on, guys, when you're doing a podcast. You can't just podcast in the dark. I mean, I guess you could, but it would be weird, probably. Also, too, I would probably need the electricity to run the gear, the equipment. It's neither here nor there, guys. Yeah, so just go to audibletrial.com/Sean vs. Wild. Sign up for your free audiobook and sign up for your free 30 days. And guys, thank you so much for your continued support. I haven't thanked you guys in a hot second, so thank you guys for your continued support of the show. I cannot wait to keep sharing all the awesome episodes with you as we go along. And if there's anybody that you want to hear, let me know. Hit me up, Sean vs. Wild, across all social media, or just send me an email at seanversuswild@gmail.com. And guys, also big thanks to my homeboy, Joe Brock, the guy that's going to be booping the dials on this episode. He takes care of me every week. So big thanks to Joe. Big thanks to you guys, the listener. Thanks to the sponsors. Big thanks to Caleb, and you know what time it is, guys. Let's get wild. We're just going to wing it, dude. Kip Winger style.
We're just going to wang it.
Dude, yeah, part 2 of the Sean vs. Wild podcast with Caleb Hanks. Yeah, dude. So we were talking about audiobooks on the break, and I told you, and listeners, you know, I have an Audible sponsorship here, so you go to audibletrial.com/Sean vs. Wild and get your free 30-day. But what audiobooks you been listening to lately?
So I've been jamming the 30th anniversary of Star Wars Heir to the Empire because I needed something to make me excited about Star Wars again after The Last Jedi. Sorry, people that liked it. You can like it. It wasn't me. And then the one that really got me onto the audiobook thing was NoFX, the Hepatitis Bathtub, because as we were kind of talking a little bit in the break, that is some of the most fucked up shit you will ever hear in the world. Like their drummer Smelly, he knew Courtney Love back in the day, and she said that he was the worst heroin junkie she had ever seen. So when Courtney Love is calling you out, that's pretty fucking terrible.
That's saying something. You're an award-winning heroin addict.
It made me realize when I was listening to the NoFX Hepatitis Bathtub and other stories, it made me realize that when you and I were on tour together, it was like the most Pollyanna shit ever.
Yeah, we were really not cool at all. It'd be like, oh my gosh, they drank and then they got really. Remember that time? It was like we played in like northern Ohio. I think we played in Youngstown, Ohio.
Youngstown, Ohio, and it was cold as fuck.
Yeah, and everybody was sick, and I just remember like sleeping in Master Sprinter, but Matt happened to have like an extra mummy bag or something, so I was like zipped completely in a cocoon, and then I woke up just sick as fuck. So that is basically our tour stories. Nothing great.
Yeah. I remember that actually because I remember leaving Youngstown and like me and Evan drove through the night for the longest time. And then I remember at some point it was like just freezing cold. And I just like came back there and curled up in this like ball of like just dudes in sleeping bags. I'm like, this is home now.
Yeah. I mean, we had awesome stories, but the thing about tour for me, and I'm sure for you, is you and I have very similar personalities where we like to be funny and we like to say just funny things all the time, and we basically entertain ourselves with.
Totally.
And the thing is you have to be there to think it's funny. Like the time I called the keyboard a moog.
A moog.
I call it a moog, and Evan just looks at me just disappointed. And he's just like, it's moog, and I was like, oh yeah, of course, because cows they say mo. And then from then on, it was like if any word had a double O in it, it was pronounced like it had one O. And then if any word had one O in it, it was pronounced like it had a double O. And literally people are going to be listening to this and not laughing about that. But that was about 4 days worth of quality entertainment for us.
Oh, totally. I mean, that's like why when I guess if anybody ever sees any of us talking on Facebook, we usually say, hey, Dode, D-O-A-D.
Dude, A-Dode has become so popular. All my friends say it. I say it to everybody. A-Dode. Like, literally, A-Dodes are very popular, and people say A-Dode to me all the time. So
no doubt, man. I was telling my girlfriend when I was telling her I was coming on to do this podcast, I was saying, yeah, Sean kind of like revolutionized me and my buddy's sense of humor there for a little while, because I can't tell you how many times I would like steal your shtick when I would be back in Asheville and nobody knew who you were, because I could just use it like it was mine.
Right.
And be like, hey, do you know Christian Slater, who played Bartman in A Dark Knight's Tale?
Hey, dude, we're like fucking Bartman and Robert right now, dude. I swear to God. You look like Keith Ledgerman from A Dark Knight's Tale, dude. I swear to God. A-Dode. Well, and the A-Dode character, man, I need to get on Saturday Night Live and just really pitch the A-Dode character. But how it started is just, there's always some grizzly middle-aged man, you know, like at the bar that you'll be playing at that night or something, and they'll come up to you and be like, hey, dude, y'all sound like, and then insert a band that you sound nothing like, and then you'll be like, yeah, man. And then, or A-Dode is also the guy that will say something that is like 95% right, but also 100% incorrect.
Right.
You know, like to say Batman and Robert. You know, hey, it's Batman and Robin, but he said Robert, it's 100% incorrect.
Dude, oh God, the after gig guy has become kind of the bane of my existence, because like I said, I've been playing Bluegrass for a living for like the last 10 years. And so basically every fucking night I get this one guy screaming Rocky Top. Sometimes it's the same guy, and one guy screaming Freebird, and Wagon Wheel is a big one.
I was going to say, do you get Wagon Wheel a lot?
Oh yeah, fucking like Wagon Wheel. It's like idiot speak currency. Like that's, everybody wants to hear that shit. But thankfully I don't really have to play it too much. But I don't know. It's kind of horrifying.
Well, I have a friend that plays in a cover band in Nashville, and he says that Wagon Wheel is so requested that if you want to hear it, you have to tip like at least $50.
Yeah,
because it's just so popular.
Sense. Yeah, totally, man.
Turtley, dude, totally awesome.
Well, I'm glad I'm not in Nashville because, well, I'm in Asheville, not Nashville. A lot of people say or think that I am saying that I am from Nashville, but I'm glad I'm here in Asheville because it's very pretty. I actually, man, I was just up your way. Actually, I just played in Wisconsin at a Bluegrass festival like a week ago. It was like 2 degrees, and I hated everything just because it was so cold.
Hey, dude, went to Wisconsin, played a fucking blue cheese festival, brother.
I mean, that's basically what it was. Everybody up there was like high on cheese curds. Man, I have to say, like, nothing against anybody from Wisconsin. It's like, man, those curds up there, it's like, wait, is that derogatory? Can I say that? Yeah, man, like, nothing against anybody from Wisconsin, but man, those people were fucked up. Like, just intoxicated, just devastatingly intoxicated. This one guy said my fiddle player in the Copernicus band, and you should check out that website, copernicusband.com, if you want to hear a bluegrass kind of ish band play a bunch of fucking Tom Petty covers and shit.
Let me guess. You named your band after 1955 Doc Brown's dog.
Dude, I'm so glad that you said that because most people ask me what Copernicus is, and I say, it's in Back to the Future 2. It's what Einstein's name is. It's like it's what Einstein the dog's name is. And yeah, totally.
It's not named after, the famous scientist or anything.
Yeah, it's not named after the guy that thought that maybe the Earth wasn't the center of the galaxy and possibly it could have been the sun. I don't know. That's still up for debate.
It's definitely Doc Brown's 1955 dog.
Yeah, when they were living in the reality that we're living in now.
Einstein's great grandfather dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
But I thought about when I was coming up through Indiana, like hitting you up, but there was no time. We had to kind of get up there and get back.
Oh, what a bummer.
But it would have been nice to see you.
Remember that time that we were talking too about having a festival with B.B. King, Queen Latifah, Sir Mix-a-Lot, and
Conway.
And Conway Twitty. Yes, exactly. That would be the ideal festival. We just thought it was funny because it was like, oh, King, Queen, Sir Mix-a-Lot. Just a bunch of royalty, royal sounding names, and then Conway Twitty.
Yeah.
That was the jam.
Rap royalty.
Yes, with Conway Twitty opening. But yeah, we were talking too about Blade Runner earlier, just to go completely off subject. Oh wait, you were probably talking about Copernicus though. Let me get back to you on that.
I'd rather talk about Blade Runner, but
fantastic.
Yeah, Copernicus is my new band, so if you guys want to check that out, it's kind of like my main thing. It's the Nova Echo under the guise of acoustic music.
Fantastic. I will post the links. They're all going on the show notes, guys. Every single link will be accounted for. But yeah, talking about Blade Runner, are you a big Philip K. Dick fan? Did you ever grow up on any of his work?
I'm not like, I don't like quote his shit or know like in the ins and outs of it, but I am aware of Philip K. Dick.
I was gonna say, as a sci-fi fan, and he writes some of the most awesomely insane sci-fi. And basically, like a lot of times sci-fi can be very similar. Like, okay, just like fantasy, how fantasy could be like, okay, there's a dragon, there's like these people, and then, there's some elves, all that good sort of thing, whatever. In sci-fi can be like that too. Like, you're in space, there's a computer, technologies run amok. Dude, take that. But Philip K. Dick was just like so high on LSD at the time that like all of his stuff is just like the biggest mind fuck ever. Blade Runner.
What's that new show that they're
Altered Carbon, dude?
Yeah,
I was curious if you had seen Altered Carbon.
No, I haven't yet, but I am aware of it. So it's out, like it's like running currently, right?
It's on Netflix. I watched the first episode So no spoilers here. So I watched the first episode, and you may want to check it out. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the similar themes that you were talking about maybe with your graphic novel, because there people have all of their hard drive, like basically all of their mind matter and their soul and what have you backed up on this little disc called their stack. And then that stack is inserted into their like cerebral cortex into new bodies, which are called sleeves.
Right.
And so you have stacks and sleeves and all that good sort of thing. Though I will say Joel Kinnaman, who's the guy that is the main character, I watched The Killing, which was a show that I really liked, but he was like this ratty, like drug addict cop. And he was just like all like, he was all like, yo, what's up? All the time, talk like people that I like went to high school with or something, you know. He was just like all the time, and he's the main character in Altered Carbon. So it took me a second. Now looks completely different. He's gained a lot of muscle, and his character is a little bit different. But it's very hard for me to not see him as the same character. You might know him from the new RoboCop, if you ever saw the RoboCop remake.
I did, but I don't know. I saw the trailer. Sometimes I see the trailer. I'm like, well, they showed the whole fucking movie in the trailer, so now I feel like I've seen that. So
maybe I just saw the original and didn't care.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen any of that, but I'm totally down to check that out. That's like, man, that's such a hard. It's like that was one of the things that I struggled with when I was coming up with the concept for some of the stuff in the Clerk Chronicles, because it's so like, and for me, I'm like a huge overthinker. So when you're thinking about like, okay, so how is consciousness going to play in this sci-fi world? Like, what are the rules? That can go so many different ways. And there's so many different ways that can go very quickly outside of the suspension of disbelief of the listeners or the readers, to where it's just like, okay, well, if this artificial intelligence is able to like self-replicate and it's able to upgrade itself, then why is it not just like skyrocketing its intelligence exponentially and then hitting God mode and then becoming like completely or completely just, it has no need or want to be associated with humankind, because human level intelligence would be so far below that at that point, getting into some of the kind of like singularitarian concepts.
Sure.
Like I was trying to think of through the Clerk Chronicles, like, God, how can I take some of the concepts of the singularity, if you follow like some of the ideas of like the Ray Kurzweil strains of thought. It's like, how can I fit this into a cohesive world where it's not going to just immediately get so fucking out of hand, and still make sense? But then I like look at shit like Westworld, and I'm just like, the robots act like humans. It's cool. I'll just do that. The robots will just act like fucking humans. I don't have to think about it that hard.
Perfect. Did you like Westworld?
I did. What'd you think of it?
Loved it. To me, I mean, I know Game of Thrones gets all the hype and stuff as far as like current HBO shows. But to me, I tuned into Westworld, like didn't miss an episode. Game of Thrones, I'll just binge watch it when it's done.
Right.
So Westworld to me was it appealed to me in many different ways, like many different levels. And like I said, Blade Runner being one of my favorite movies of all time, maybe my favorite movie of all time. It had so much of that, really just the general concept of what is human, what does it mean to be human, if you can think, if you can act, if you can make decisions on your own, if you have a consciousness, does that, even though you're an android, does that make you human-like, or does that give you any sort of, realism, I guess? But
right.
Those kind of themes, those conflicting themes and stuff that are in Blade Runner being in that show, loved it. So,
man, I go so far down the rabbit hole with that whole like way of thinking, because like when it came to the Clerk Chronicles comic book, and just the way that I approach consciousness in that is that consciousness is basically this kind of benign something that's kind of floating around out in the universe. When you put together the right substrate, when you put together all the right components, consciousness kind of inhabits that. So if a biological succession of components come together in the right with all the right parts, like through a human birth, consciousness can enter that. Who is to say that if you were to technologically, and I'm talking about this in real life too, who's to say that if you were to be able to get technology to where it mimicked biology so closely, who is to say that, depending on your religious belief, who's to say that consciousness could not inhabit that form in the same way? So it's kind of thinking of it in the Clerk Chronicles world and potentially applying that to however a singularity might happen in our future. I kind of like to think of it, at least it makes it more fun for me in the comic book and easier to write. If consciousness kind of is this, it's like personality, but these personalities, these people, these characters can just kind of go into whatever form they find, you know? Because it's like, as far as I fucking know, I was just, that is what happened.
Sure.
Like, as far as I know, that's what my consciousness did. It was out in the universe and came into this vessel. I don't fucking know how that all works. The disconnection of the soul and the mind and the body, that is a can of worms, man. That is a conversation to be had. But dude, there's really no telling how that's all going to go and how quickly it could happen. And that's kind of like what's so insane about the idea of the exponential progression of technology. Because, like, dude, think about this. Seriously, like 10 years ago, our phones were these glorified calculators. And now we have like these little artificial intelligence assistants that are pretty fucking smart that just go with us wherever we go.
Yeah.
And tell us what the temperature is outside and shit like that. Like, dude, that was 10 years ago. We did not even have that.
Yeah, we had to, I remember like going to my first shows, like playing our first shows and having to get an email with the directions on how to get to the venue. And with that email, you basically printed it out and took it with you in like an itinerary, or you wrote it down before you went there. And then you had to call the promoter to be like, all right, now where do I go from here? Dude, now we have phones that literally will get you from point A to point B in no time. Like, sometimes I'm like, where was I when I was reading a map? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
dude,
those days are completely over.
I remember when I was on tour with the band Dawn of the Dude, that was probably back in like 2004, 5, and 6, I guess. And I remember like printing out sheets and sheets and sheets of fucking MapQuest directions.
Exactly.
How we ever, like, I still get lost sometimes using damn GPS. How the hell we ever got to the venues back in the day, like when we were having to use that, it's a mystery to me.
Yeah, and also look at it this way too. Like, you know, we're sitting here on a podcast. Now, we could have done this podcast. I mean, we could have done it with our phone. Like, we could have literally Skyped each other, and I'm sure there's an app that would record it, and then we could use an app to edit it, and then I can post it from my phone and all that sort of thing. Like, all the technology is literally right now in our pocket. And of course, we use it for Tinder, but you know, you can also learn stuff if you wanted to also.
I mean, well, if you think about it, and maybe I'm kind of the poster boy for the guy who's trying to not willingly, but kind of by happenstance, fuck the industry completely up, because what used to be huge production houses are now becoming people in their bedroom that have access to the Adobe suite. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And like, it's just so crazy because the democratization of technology is something that people, I think they completely overlook the true potential and the true power of what is being put in the hands of the common folk. Because like, people are like, man, I hate technology. Well, some people are like, I hate technology because all people ever do is just stick their head in their phone, and all they ever do is just like stare at Facebook and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you have a choice to do that. Like, you don't have to spend your time just like looking at fucking Facebook. It's like, I spend an incredible amount of time at my computer, but I will say, maybe it's like a neuroses, but the majority of the time that I spend at my computer, I am creating shit, and I'm creating stuff that I would not be able to make if I didn't have these tools like right there in my hand. Like, it's incredible to me how powerful your just like run of the mill baseline Mac computer is. I mean, it's like a goddamn production house, dude.
I know. And, something that I was thinking of, too, the other day, I was talking about Robert Rodriguez. I listened to a podcast with him on Tim Ferriss. Are you familiar with Tim Ferriss, the guy that did like the 4-Hour Work Week, the 4-Hour Body, the 4-Hour Chef?
I am. I got to meet Robert Rodriguez. I'll tell you about that in a sec.
Oh, fantastic. Well, so he was on his show, and he was just talking about how he made El Mariachi and stuff like that, and how he made it with, like $7,000 or something like that. And,
right.
And how it became, Desperado and basically how it launched his career. And I'm just thinking, man, with $7,000, I believe that's how much he spent, $7,000. Maybe it was $3,000. I don't know. But for, say, $7,000, dude, you could have like an amazing video camera. You could have amazing audio. You could have a full setup, and you can make your own movie easily. Right. And I'm just like, why aren't people? I'm sure there are people, but why aren't we hearing about movies that are like winning Sundance or going to Cannes or something like that that are just made on no budget or a phone or something? I mean, we have, again, your phone has I have like a 4K camera on this phone.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah. Well, see, and I went down that rabbit hole, and there's just so much shit that I'm trying to do for the Clerk project, because it is like such a huge like multimedia project. So I kind of went down the rabbit hole with that, and so I got the iPhone 10. I really like the phone. It's awesome, but the camera on this thing is ridiculous. And so I bought these like little camera attachment things that are like lenses. It was like a $10 packet, but these little lenses, there's like, you just slide them on, and it's got like a wide angle and fisheye, and it's incredible like what you can do with a fucking phone. Because I use this program called Filmic Pro on the iPhone, mm-hmm. and it makes it to where your shutter speed is 24 frames per second. So that's like the standard for most film. And so you're filming stuff on your iPhone that is like at 24 frames per second, 4K video quality, and it looks insane. And These are our goddamn phones, dude. And so what I'm trying to do is kind of go around and film some music videos for the Clerk Chronicles. I have one that I did a couple of years ago that's like it's on the Clerk website, and you can check it out. It's for a song called Ara. But yeah, I'm really trying to get more into that world, because man, it's kind of this punk rock DIY ethic.
Yeah.
Everything about it is, I always feel, because dude, I grew up listening to punk music. I still love punk rock. I love everything about it, truly. Like the DIY shit. And I feel like and I actually call the Clerk, the comic, and the music cyberpunk, because it's all just like stripped down DIY, but that doesn't mean it has to be shitty quality. It's
right,
like
exactly.
You can take like your phone and film this shit in 4K, and then throw that stuff in like Adobe After Effects and use some really inexpensive plugins to get some really kick-ass looking effects. And so that's, I don't know. It's like the punk ethic has stayed with me my whole entire life, and I still very much utilize that, because dude, I feel like I am the epitome of DIY at this point, because number one, I can do it all myself, and number two, I can't wait on anybody else to do it because I'm too fucking impatient.
Well, also too, if you don't have to worry about anybody else, it just makes things a lot easier. That when I switched from being in a band to doing a podcast, that's like my biggest thing. I tell people this. They're like, "Why did you do it?" I'm like, because now with this project, I depend only on myself, and when I want to work, I work, and the stuff gets done. And that's
totally, man,
a huge benefit to working alone. You know the stuff's going to get done, and if it isn't, it's on you.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I started drawing. I literally started doing the goddamn comic book because I was like, I don't want to have to wait on anybody. And I was like, I don't really even give a crap if the comic book looks terrible because I don't know how to draw. I was like, I'm just going to figure it out and get it to where it looks okay,
Right. What are some of your favorite comic books, and what are some of your favorite like comic artists or writers or anything like that?
So I feel like this is a pretty popular opinion, and maybe it's a cliche opinion, but I don't really know too much about comic books. Like, I read a lot of Marvel back in the day. I read a lot of Spider-Man and shit like that. As of right now, dude, Image Comics just has it going on. Like, they have so much cool shit. Saga is one of the comic books that really kind of got me back into doing the Clerk, because I did the Clerk, and then when I went into the kind of like alcoholic depression shit when I was making the album, I kind of fell off the wagon with the comic book, just because I just didn't give a shit. I was just like in a bad place. I didn't want to work on it, and I was like, fuck it all. But I started reading Saga, which is Brian K. Vaughan, and Fiona Staples is the artist. Brian K. Vaughan writes it. It's just a really good story. It's a really good comic. The artwork is, I think the artwork is really cool in a way and I don't want to say this as any kind of slant or throwing shade at my girl Fiona, but the artwork is kind of just, it's simple. Right. But there's obviously like a lot of craftsmanship that goes into her style, but her art is not like super, super chaotic or whatever. Another comic that I'll mention that I really like is Tokyo Ghost. Have you ever seen Tokyo Ghost?
I have not. Is it an anime? Or
no,
it's a manga, if you will.
It's another comic book on Image, and oh God, I'm trying to think of who the artist is. I can't remember his name, but yeah, check out Tokyo Ghost. It's another Image comic book. It's like really, really violent and super crazy. I can't remember who the damn artist's name is, which is stupid because I was literally looking at his shit just the other day. But like his art is just out of this fucking world. I mean, just talk about a guy who's just like a complete master of his craft. He's done a lot of stuff for like DC. He's done art for Batman. Hold on, I could actually probably find it right here. What is this dude's name?
I've heard of Batman. You don't have to look him up.
Bantam. There
you go again with your Star Trek.
Sean Gordon Murphy.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt is doing the artwork.
Do you remember when Joseph Gordon-Levitt was filming the comic story Tokyo Toast, and it was all about breakfast adventures?
Dude, I couldn't believe it, man. My mind was fucking blown. I haven't, you could imagine my chagrin when I found out it was Joseph Gordon-Levitt this whole time. I haven't been hoodwinked since the time I went and saw this movie with two beautiful white chicks, and it turns out the whole time it was the brothers Wayans.
You could imagine how Sigourney I was when I found out that it was Joseph the Toolman Taylor.
And he wrote the whole comic book, dude. He wrote the whole coloring book. It was insane.
Dude, okay. Like, and I don't mean to shit on him any more than I kind of already do on Twitter or whatever, but like, have you seen the Justice League movies or any of that shit?
I did see the Justice League movie, and oddly enough, I actually kind of liked it.
Really?
Yeah, I actually kind of liked it.
So I am willing to see it, but
I liked it just as much as I liked Star Wars.
Right. See, so I tried to watch Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice. And I was just like, maybe it's just green screen overload. I think that's what kills me, because man, I just feel like the green screen work on those movies looks so bad.
Don't worry. Justice League, if you thought that way about Batman v Superman, you will definitely feel that way about Justice League, because that's even worse.
That's how I felt about The Last Jedi. I felt like The Last Jedi looked about, as far as production-wise goes, I felt like I was watching a fucking Justice League movie, but then there's like old Luke Skywalker. I'm like, what has the future become?
To me, it just reminded me of like, oh, we'll take, Thor Ragnarok and put it in Star Wars. We'll take Guardians of the Galaxy, but make it Star Wars. It's cool.
Right.
Like, I didn't, like, oh, dude, you know what'd be awesome? Like, let's have Luke Skywalker, like, milk the tits of this alien and, like, suckle blue milk from him. What do you think about that? And you're like, that's a horrible idea, dude. Fuck it, we're putting it in there. How about a giant fish to go with it, bro? How about that? And you're just like, oh, this is exactly what I waited all year to see, is some people hauling around a huge fish and him drinking the blue milk. That was unforgivable. That was an unforgivable scene. Or it's like let's make him go to the casino. Wouldn't that be great? And then they'll ride like these dog camels. You're gonna love it.
I wish I could have been a fucking fly on the wall at the meeting where it's like, all right, Luke Skywalker, most powerful new Jedi in the whole galaxy. He's been training for like 30 years. He's got to be a complete badass. What are we going to watch him do in this movie? I don't know. Fish and then suck milk out of the tit of some random the tittles of some random fucking mammal.
How about that?
Yeah. What? Sounds good.
Print it. The kids will love it.
It's like J.J. Abrams is like on the Skype on the computer over to the side. They're like, yo, JJ, did you get that? And he's like, the connection's a little bad. Could you just say that part one more time? All right, cool. It's going in the movie.
Yeah, it's great. I also hated, the opening part. And I mentioned this on the podcast too. I'm not going to get into Star Wars because it seems like I just always shit on Star Wars on this podcast. And for some reason, it just keeps coming back up. It's too popular. But yeah, I hated the part where they were like, I'm holding for the captain. And he's like, I am the captain. And he's like, I'm holding for the captain. And he's like, I am the captain. And then he's like, no, seriously, I'm the captain, And he's like, well, tell him I don't have all day. I'm holding for the captain. Like, I'm just like, dude, that is a poor attempt at humor. And I feel like that joke could have just easily been in like, Thor or a myriad of other Marvel movies that they're trying to do. Once Guardians of the Galaxy got popular, which I'm not shitting on Guardians of the Galaxy because I enjoyed those movies, but I feel like it has set a tone where, okay, Guardians of the Galaxy worked with Marvel, Disney, whatever. They're like, we'll just make every movie like that.
Yeah, and dude, like...
all the characters are bumbling idiots, even if they're saving the galaxy.
Right, yeah. And, when Guardians of the Galaxy 1 came out, I was like, oh, this is super fun, because at that point you hadn't really seen like a comedy in that context, which was fine. But like you said, like a lot of people really, really liked Thor Ragnarok. I just felt like it was some shitty comedy movie that had the skin of a superhero movie.
I didn't like it.
Pulled over it.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear you say that, man, because like I felt like it was just a bunch of really cheap shit.
That's what I thought too. Jeff Goldblum was good in
humor.
It, but that's about it.
And yeah, and then like I'm sitting there watching the fucking Last Jedi, and that scene you're talking about where he's like holding for the captain or whatever, like I immediately was like, oh my God, guys, can we not pull this like warmed over 2017 bullshit humor into Star Wars, please? Like,
right.
It just immediately took me out of the movie. I mean, I sat there through and yeah, we don't have to stay on Star Wars. And I'm not trying to shit on Star Wars because seriously, I fucking love Star Wars so much. Like I care about it so much. But like I was sitting there with my ass cheeks clenched through the majority of that movie, just like, when's it gonna not suck? And then it just never did.
It never stopped not sucking.
It never stopped sucking. But
yes.
Anyway, I don't like to spend my time like talking shit about stuff, but yeah, I just had major gripes at that movie. But it's fine. It's not everything. I try to give filmmakers the benefit of the doubt because putting together a movie and somehow through all the chaos and actors and all the drama and all the shit and all the fucking like everything that goes into the movie, the post-production, it's a miracle that movies end up working. You know what I mean, dude?
Exactly. Yeah, and people are like, oh, this movie was bad. Well, guess what, dude? It's better than anything you could ever do while you're just sitting around in your stupid chair eating Cheetos.
You entitled shit.
Right, exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm thinking about, I know I'm just going to hit you with this, but I think, because you wanted to play Atlas, I wanted to play Osiah, I think we need to go ahead and play some Atlas right in the middle of part 2. What do you think about that? We'll hit
I'm totally down.
We'll keep hitting them with more Clerk Chronicles, guys. So thanks for listening so far. I'm going to take a small break here and hit you with Atlas by the Clerk right now, and enjoy. All right, everybody. The Clerk with Atlas. Caleb, you've outdone yourself yet again, sir.
I really tried. And by that, I mean, I recorded the vocals to that song in a closet in Los Angeles.
You really made it happen, dude. Way to make something out of nothing, brother.
I mean, that's kind of like, yeah, that's kind of the whole thing. It's just I like to crap art into the universe that comes out of nothing.
Dude, isn't it kind of cool if you actually sit down and break it down where you're like, okay, one day, something inspired me, something triggered in my brain, and I thought a thought, and then with that, I, put pen to paper, wrote down some words, and got on the computer and put some stuff together, and then recorded some vocals in a closet, and then now you have a song. And then what if that song, like, I don't know, literally someone hears it, and then they're like, dude, I want to do this too. And then they do it. That's how crazy your one dumb little shower thought was to begin with. That's how crazy life is if you really break it down.
Dude, that's the big weird question. I mean, it's like this whole ball of like, what the fuck is life? It's like, if you think about it, your mind, which scientifically we don't really know what that is completely, like the bond between consciousness and biology, we still don't quite quantify it. Like, we don't know what that is with science or an understanding of science of like what the fuck that even is.
Right.
But that thing somehow is like creating, it's willing your body and to create things just out of thin air, and it's like influencing the world.
Right.
How weird is that?
Yeah, and some people, like, that's kind of like the basis of like magic, chaos magic, or like even things like The Secret. I mean, it's all the same thing, the power of attraction, whatever. You think positive things and then positive things happen or whatever. But I mean, that's kind of, it's just so crazy that, everything is out here and it's just influencing other things, and your brain picks up all this stuff and then decides like to keep some of it hanging around, and then that makes more stuff out in the universe. It's crazy how that happens. It's like a Swiffer. Hey, dude, it's like a big ass Swiffer, brother.
Well, yeah, that's really truly the main governing force in my life is I make what I make because I want other people to feel shit, man. I want people to feel like emotions when they hear the music, and like, yeah, the Clerk stuff is like emo as fuck, but like, I want people to feel. I want people to just enjoy their life because, man, one thing that I realized very quickly, like one of the first dudes I ever played music with when I was in the 6th grade, just drops dead of a brain tumor out of nowhere. It was kind of, not to bring everybody down, but it was just kind of like a really quick, debilitating thing. And I saw him like 3 days before he died. And I mean, he was like immobilized, but he was still in there. Like, his body was shutting down, but his mind was still in there because he used to do this little thing where he would like kind of give the Ace Ventura eyes and look to the left and look to the right. And he was sitting there in a damn wheelchair, crippled up, and he kept doing that thing that he would do and whipping his eyes around. And I was like laughing at him like, dude, like, you are still trying to like make jokes and shit out of all of the fucking terrible shit that you are having to go through right now. 3 days later, he was dead. And I'm just like, number one, life is so short, but life is so incredible and magical that like my friend that was going through all that shit was still like sitting there about to die and is still like fucking around and just trying to make jokes with his buddies before he went. And I was just like, God, dude. Ugh.
That's kind of the whole thing about life, though. So you have to enjoy it. You have to have a good time. It's short. It's precious. Nobody knows when they're going to go. Yeah, not to take this podcast into a real deep bummer state, but, that's the thing. We spend so much of our time, too, like, and kind of going back to what you're talking about, like people on their phone, on the Facebook, on, technology is a bad thing. The thing is you got to be able to, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around every once in a while, you could miss it. Ferris Bueller. You know what I'm saying? If you spend all your time like arguing about shit on Facebook, like you're going to miss out on how cool life is. And trust me,
oh, hell yeah.
All Facebook is going to be people voicing their opinion and people disagreeing with it. And once you read so much of it, you're going to get bummed out. And you're going to think for a second, like, this is all life is because your reality bubble is just this echo chamber of every bad thing that is going on in the world, and you think maybe this is all there is. But trust me, anybody out there listening, it's totally not. And the secret is you have to you have to be happy. You have to stop and enjoy life. As crazy it is, crazy shit's happened in the past few weeks with this world, but you got to still keep on living and keep on looking for the goodness in everything and making it. Otherwise, you're just going to be miserable forever.
Well, people, I don't think that they really take the reins of their reality very often, because it's so easy for them to sit there and just stare at Facebook and get the illusion that grown-ups don't actually exist. It's just a bunch of little bitching babies that are all on Facebook bitching about their little bullshit problems. Like, I got a flat tire on the interstate. It's like, okay, that sucks. But it's like, it's not even about like not paying attention to that on Facebook, and it's not even about like getting off of Facebook, but it's just like choosing to not really allow that to become your reality. Because as much time as I spend on the internet and on a computer, like, you're just so constantly bombarded by people venting to the collective consciousness that is social media and all of that stuff, and it can become a very incredibly toxic situation. If you're sitting there looking at nothing but Facebook all day, dude, it can like ruin your mindset completely.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people say like, I'm very depressed and I have anxiety and I have this and that. And honestly, I think social media can very well be a direct, I mean, I'm no doctor. Okay. Let's get that right for a second. But the things that they read and the things that they subject themselves to and the things that they are surrounded by all being very negative or very high tension, or, somebody's, some celebrity's done fucked up here, or I'm going to call this person out here, or this, somebody bullying you or something. Like the fact that that's never ending. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just seems like, I don't know. I think that has something to do with just the high rates of it, because people can't turn themselves off from that world and actually like deal with or separate themselves from that and enjoy the real world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of the time for people, it's so easy for them to kind of look at technology as the scapegoat. It's like, man, technology has fucked everything up for me. Like Facebook, social media, all this stuff has fucked everything up for me, blah, blah, blah. For me, man, the internet and computers and technology has always been an incredibly positive experience, because if I start to see something that is like taking me down into a shitty place, like if I'm just like reading people complaining on Facebook, I'm like, cool, not going to look at that for a little while. When I think of the internet and my experience with it, I truly feel as though I am in this, and I've kind of always thought of the character of the Clerk like this, but I'm like in this space station, and I'm able to send out these radio waves to people I've never met, but that are going through the human experience, and they're experiencing life just like I am, and I am able to send out my little signals in the night to the few other passengers on this vessel that we call Earth. And the internet has become this incredibly beautiful thing that we tend to bastardize just because of the nature of its connectivity and
the nature of its inhabitants.
Indeed. And like,
indeed.
In goddamn deed. But yeah, like for me, I look at the internet and I'm just like, holy shit, it is an endless source of everything I've ever wanted to know. And it's this pipeline of just constant inspiration and art and just beautiful things and short films and free kick-ass like movies on YouTube that people have like just poured their heart into and made, and just like this incredible connectivity. Like usually when I sit down at the computer in the morning, I just click on YouTube and just see what some random blogger is talking about, because I think it's so cool to be able to just like go into somebody's world and just see what the fuck they're doing,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and providing the content is good. I find that just incredibly connecting, even though I'm not directly connecting with these people, but I feel more human just being able to just like, I don't know, see people having the human experience through the internet.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And especially with podcasts. That's why I do a podcast. I like the interactivity of it. I like it when people listen to it. Obviously, I love it when people listen to podcasts. And my thing is I want to be as honest as I possibly can. I want to be fun, and I want it to be uplifting. I want it to be happy. Even if you talk about like kind of deep shit, like these are the conversations that people have. Have a few drinks, talk some craziness, and like that's just the fun of being alive, is having these deep conversations. Like it stimulates you intellectually.
Totally.
But that's what I like about podcasts is, there's a podcast for every subject out there, and you listen to it, and if the host is good, you'll connect with them, and you'll want to know more about them, and you want to hear their stories, and you feel like that person would be your friend, or these people are just like you. You know what I'm saying? And you just have that connectivity with what they're doing, and that's what I like so much. And also, you're learning stuff, like you were saying before. Like you learn anything you want to learn via podcast. So I feel that, like, I do like that part of the internet. You know what I'm saying? Just the fact that you can peek into someone's life randomly, see what they're up to, and relate to that.
Yeah, man. I mean, and I think too, people are sometimes just afraid to talk about the deep stuff. Now, I personally love that, as you can probably tell. Like, I love talking about deep philosophical conversation or topics and the future of humanity, even if the future, especially when you look at things like the singularity, maybe is not such a good thing for humanity as a whole, but potentially for consciousness and evolution, maybe it is a really good thing. That's a whole nother can of worms. But I just as much enjoy talking about those things as I could go down an IMDb rabbit hole with you and just talk about, like, this fucking guy was in this movie and blah, 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 blah. Because,
exactly.
Dude, I mean, I'm just a huge nerd. I got a throwback for you, though. You were talking about Robert Rodriguez, and I mentioned that I met him.
Yes.
Dude, I have one of the weirdest stories ever that I cannot wait to share with you right now, because I've been on a couple of podcasts here and there, but I don't think that I have ever told this story to the public. And I guess it's okay for me to tell this now because I'm not under contract anymore. So
this is a Sean versus Wild exclusive, guys.
Yeah,
this is going to seal the deal why you tuned into part 2. Okay, not only for the humorous banter and our deep thoughts, this is the bread and butter. Let me set you up. You just knock it out of the park, okay?
Yeah, totally. Totes, potatoes. Yeah, that's a tour story I'll have to tell you at some point. But anyway, yeah. So this might not be the most incredible story to everyone, but it was one of the weirdest experiences I've ever been a part of. So I played bluegrass professionally, quote unquote professionally, bro, for like 10 years, bro. And as I've said 3 fucking times because I'm so important, bro. But so we were playing this one gig, and before we played it, a couple of weeks prior, like a month or so, they sent out NDAs, the non-disclosure agreements. And we're like, why do we have to sign these? And they're like, well, it's for a famous actor, and you can't tell anybody that you're going to be at the venue before it happens, because we can't let paparazzi or any of that bullshit. They just don't want anybody to know you're gonna be there. So we're like, yeah, that's cool. So we didn't know who it was gonna be or anything. So we get to the gig, and are you familiar with the band the Avett Brothers?
Yes.
So I got to the gig, and they were the other band that was playing. And so I walk up, and they're like, hey, what's going on? You guys are Nitrograss. That was the band I was playing with at the time. They're like, you guys are Nitrograss. What's going on? Yeah, blah, blah. We're the Avett Brothers. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard of you guys. And they were super, super nice. We got to hang out with them for a little bit. So it turns out that the wedding was for Josh Brolin. And so all these famous people just start pouring into the venue. We're in the middle of
were all the Goonies there?
Dude, so I wish. But one was, which was just Josh.
Perfect.
But so I don't know if you knew this, but his stepmom is Barbara fucking Streisand.
Yes, I did know that.
And so Barbara Streisand walks into the room, and I'm like, wow, I'm really glad I have to sing Rocky Top in front of Barbara Streisand today. the Coen brothers walk in, Nora Jones walks in, Robert Rodriguez walks in, and like all these freaking people. And I'm just like, what the fuck? I was the most stoked because his dad, James Brolin, I knew him from Pee-wee's Big Adventure when they do the little like movie inside the movie where James Brolin is P.W. Herman.
I know you are, but what am I?
Yeah. Calling Mr. Herman.
That's so great, dude. I love it too. That part, just a sidebar on that. Like they don't even call him Pee-wee, they call him PW. I love that.
P.W. Herman.
PW.
Calling Mr. Herman. There's a call for you at the front desk. So I'm sitting there like geeking out because I'm like, dudes, it's P.W. fucking Herman. And then after the gig got done, his wife came up and she was really, really nice. And she's like, did you guys get to meet Josh yet? I'm like, no. She's like, oh, hold on. Let me get him. So Josh comes over and like, I just have to say this. He had the softest hands I've ever touched. I don't know why I remembered that, but he just had like the softest hands for a dude I've ever touched ever.
Well, when your dad's James Brolin, you probably didn't have to work a day in your life.
That's probably true. Other than like that one day that you were in Goonies or whatever.
Yeah, and then when you did work, you were an actor. That's not even a real job. Just kidding, guys. Yeah. It's a totally real job for all you actors out there checking it out. I love actors. I love movies. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I said. So I says to Josh Brolin. I says. I was like, man, I'm pretty stoked to be shaking your hand right now because like this is the hand that wears the goddamn Infinity Gauntlet. And he was like, dude, and this was probably 2 years ago, I guess. And he was like, man, I'm not supposed to be like talking about this, but I'll tell you, man, you played my wedding, so it's all good. And he's like, man, I was just down in Atlanta, and it was the first day of preliminary shooting for the Infinity War movie. And he was like, they put all the little dots all over my face and told me to make all these faces and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, after about 10 minutes of moving my face around and doing all this crap, they had a screen the size of like this giant wall. And they had a fully 3D rendered movie ready to go Thanos on the screen. And he's like, everything I did, Thanos did. He's like, I've been in the business since I was a kid. And that was one of the weirdest fucking things I've ever seen. He's like, also pretty sure Thanos is going to be bald in the movie. So, keep an eye out for that. And I was like, exclusive information.
Oh, nice.
And I had to like keep that secret for 2 years.
Perfect.
Which I'm sure he's just bald anyway.
I'm pretty sure he's going to be bald in this movie. You heard it first. Hot tip. right from the horse's mouth.
Right from the horse's ass.
So, okay. So he's going to give you this hot tip that's now obsolete because, oh wait, no, the Infinity Wars movie isn't out yet, is it?
Yeah, but that information's like in the trailer, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, perfect, dude. Hot tips coming at you.
Oh, but yeah, Robert Rodriguez, last part of the thing. So Robert Rodriguez, I'm pretty sure, was pretty fucking shithoused by that point because they'd all just been partying. And our bass player like saw him on a shuttle, and he just like grabs me and runs into the bus, and he's like, "Oh my god, I'm just a really big fan." And Robert Rodriguez just looks up at him, just like half cocked, his like eyes just kind of like, huh? And he's just like, yeah, thank you very much. Just like the shuttle takes off and we stand there in the dust like, that guy was so cool.
Yeah, that was the coolest thing that has ever happened to me.
Yeah. It's like my life has sucked.
Perfect. Dude, yeah, I thought it was going to be juicier than that, but you know what? You didn't let me down. That was a great story.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. I got to sing Rocky Top in front of Barbra Streisand. That's pretty much what you need to take away from that.
Did she tip you well?
Fuck no, she wasn't even watching.
Oh. Damn it, Barbara's probably like, I could do better. I could sing better than this.
She's like, I did Hello Dolly. I don't give a shit about your wagon wheel.
Exactly. Hey, if you need me, I'm going to go be in, The Way We Were.
I'm going to go be in Meet the Fockers.
Yes, perfect. But yeah, so let me ask you this question, because I always talk about, Star Wars ends up creeping up, but are you a fan of Dune? Are you a Dune fan? I talk about Dune a lot on this podcast too, and nobody's read it.
Okay, I haven't read Dune. I saw Dune quite a few years ago, but I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit pissed at David Lynch right now.
Why is that?
Because, okay, did you watch Twin Peaks?
Oh, no, I haven't finished it yet. And I love Twin Peaks, so please don't, we'll just talk about something else.
Are you talking about, I'm talking about, you saw the old Twin Peaks.
Oh, yes. I'm a huge fan of the original Twin Peaks, but I haven't watched The Return yet.
Okay, well, I'm not going to say anything, but I will say if I'd never seen the new Twin Peaks, I'd probably be a happier person.
Perfect. Yeah, I watched like the first 3 episodes, and then I basically have to wait. Like stream those, and then I just haven't got around to checking out the rest of it, and I can't afford the Blu-ray set yet, so I'll have to pick that up when I have a little extra money. Guys, hurry up and sign up for some Audible trials so I can afford to watch Twin Peaks: The Return, so that way Caleb and I can have a follow-up episode about whether I liked it or not. Yeah,
if you get around to it, we can talk about what that was. But anyway, back to your Dune question.
I would highly recommend you check out Dune. A lot of times I tell people about Dune because Dune is very much Star Wars, but just it came out about, I don't know, 10 years before. The book was written about and published about 10 years before Star Wars, but Star Wars has borrowed a lot from Dune, so much so that Frank Herbert actually sued George Lucas back in the day on 18 counts of plagiarism for Dune.
Wow.
So, and then by the time the Dune movie came out, they had to change so much stuff because they're like, oh, this is too much like Star Wars. And he's just like probably thinking to himself, fuck you, man. I wrote the original. But you should check it out. It's an awesome universe if you like sci-fi. And the original 6 books are clutch. I would definitely check them out. The first one is definitely clutch, okay? And then the other books are nice supplemental material, but it's not, you don't have to check it out if you don't want to, you know? But it is nice to have a little bit more and some cooler stories. And what I like about Dune as well is, you know, between book 1 and book 2 is pretty much like maybe 20 years, maybe another 20 years after that is book 3, and then it's like 5,000 years in the future, and then after that it's like 10,000 years after that for the next books, you know. So it's really cool. I would highly suggest you check it out. And then if you were to read the prequels, which you really don't have to, they're written by Frank Herbert's son and this guy named Brian K. Anderson, I believe is his name, much like Brian K. Vaughan that you mentioned earlier. But I think that's his name, Brian K. Anderson. I could be mistaken, but they're written much more fast-paced. Dune is a nice, slow read, much like we were talking about how much we enjoyed Blade Runner because it's refreshingly slow and detailed. Dune is written that way. Whenever his son took over the franchise, it's much more like a bunch of shit happens, but it's pretty cool. I would highly recommend you checking out. And again, I don't want to say too much about it because you haven't read it, and I don't want to spoil it for you. But maybe that's the next audiobook you should check out, bro, if you're into fictional audiobooks. Well, that's really funny that you were talking about that because and the relationship to Star Wars, because David Lynch was one of the directors that was in the runnings to do either Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. Right. Could you imagine if Return of the Jedi was done by David Lynch? I bet it would. Honestly, I just don't think that is David Lynch's forte. After watching Dune, I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if it's your forte or not. I mean, it's been quite a few years since I saw Dune, but I mean, does it get into the territory of like just straight up David Lynch crazy as fuck stuff? Yeah, some of it is. Some of it's very crazy. Yeah. Yeah. It's offsetting. But it's like it's cohesive though. Sure. Right. Because that's like one thing that I feel like David Lynch has a hard fucking time with is like finding some sort of like storyline. Well, like David Lynch made some pretty interesting choices. So like, you know, in the book, it's so much introspection. You know, there's so much like introspective thought. And instead of like, you know, I don't know, figuring out a way to portray that in pictures, he would just like have people have their thoughts like read voiceover. Right. You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, man, this is a very, very strange concept to execute this huge budget movie. And then, you know, But, I can't say shit about it because David Lynch made Elephant Man one of the greatest movies of all time. And, it just is what it is.
Okay, so I've got a pretty good jump off from there for you. I'm fairly certain that we've talked about this before. You're like a fan of The Fifth Element, right?
Oh, yeah. Love The Fifth Element.
Okay, so everybody was giving Luc Besson's new movie Valerian a bunch of shit. Did you see Valerian?
I haven't seen it, but I've literally not heard one good thing about it.
Okay, and that's what I heard as well. And so I truly tend to not listen to the majority of the reviews of movies and just go see, I'll just give anything the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
Because I thought the trailer looked kind of cool for Valerian, and apparently that graphic novel or comic book or whatever it was it was made back in I think the 60s, and apparently it was very influential to things like Star Wars. So I immediately was like, okay, well the dude from Fifth Element is doing something that influenced Star Wars, so I'm down with this shit. So I watched the movie, and no spoilers or anything. My opinion of the film was, so the main two characters are definitely stiff. It's the kid that played the Green Goblin. He was like the main bad guy in Chronicle, if you ever saw that film.
Yeah, Chronicle. Okay, gotcha.
He's like the main bad guy in that. So he's like the main guy. And then the girl that was like the evil dark witch lady in Suicide Squad was the other person in the film. So the storyline and the acting are a little tough. But if you're just looking for something that's like a really, really kick-ass visual display of science fiction, dude, it's visually, it's amazing. Like, that is a very visually stunning film. I understand why people didn't like it, but I feel like there could have been just like a few things here and there that could have potentially made that movie really good.
Man, you just said that movie is good. I'm surprised we even have any listeners left at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
They probably just all turned it off. Why are we even still talking at this point? No,
I didn't say the movie was good. I said it was pretty.
Yeah, there you go. Let me ask you too, because we'll probably need to wrap this one up too. Part 2 is about done, and we'll have to just have you come back, and we can keep talking after this is wrapped, just to catch up. But you were talking about your comic book being cyberpunk. Are you into the cyberpunk kind of genre at all? Like, have you read like Neuromancer, for example, or anything like that?
I haven't really gone into the realm of cyberpunk as far as like trying to get into that culture. The majority of what I have seen and this is probably me just being like, yeah, I'm cyberpunk. I don't know anything about it. Let me just like out myself. But like, the majority of the cyberpunk stuff that I have taken in is I'll just go like DeviantArt and just see what people are tagging and just like look at all the like character concept designs and stuff like that. So as far as the world of cyberpunk goes, that culture could be very in depth, and I wouldn't really know too much about it because everything that I've kind of taken in is just the main, like, just kind of the artistic representations of what a lot of people's view of what cyberpunk is, just like through character design or sci-fi design and stuff like that. And I just like to call the Clerk music cyberpunk because I feel like the music is so heavily influenced by pop punk stuff, but it's just absolutely all like using the very electronic sounds too. So,
dude, you're making a whole new genre of music.
I hope so.
You're breaking ground. Breaking ground here.
Breaking wind.
You're breaking new winds every day, dude. You're breaking new winds every day, dude. All right. Well, as we wrap up here, we've talked about it. We've teased it. Tell everybody about Totally Different Tatoes.
Ladies and gentlemen, the tale of Totally Different Tatoes is coming at you right now like a thing that you previously didn't know you wanted coming at you, and then when you found out it was coming at you, you did not want it to. So we were on tour with the Nova Echo, which was my group, and Baby Yeah, which was Sean's group, and we met this girl, and where the fuck were we? It was like Saginaw, Michigan or something.
We were definitely in
It was in Michigan.
I think it was in Michigan because we went to that college campus randomly, and they had all the completely like jet black squirrels. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. And that random little pixie girl that like took us around, and then she was like, "Okay, bye. I'll never see you again," and then just disappeared into the ether.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if she still exists. If you're out there listening, drop us a line. Let us know how everything's going.
Well, it's funny because, and I'll get to the potatoes here in a second. I had so many videos of tour of us. I had a video where that girl, the pixie girl that was leading us around, she was in it. I had this huge video of that campus, and I had a hard drive failure and lost everything, dude.
Dude, it only exists in our memories.
I used to have so much video from those tours, and I think Evan still has a decent amount, and maybe I've got some still on my old phone. But dude, I used to have so much video from our tour like experiences. But anyway, so possibly different potatoes.
We were in Michigan. Totally,
I
totally
think
different potatoes.
I think that's what it evolved into, but immediately it was possibly different potatoes. So
immediately different potatoes.
It was like the Michigan State University campus.
Yeah.
Because we played that gig and literally 2 people came out.
Yeah, it was great. What a great gig.
We played a show and it was like there were going to be some kids coming in, but then they like turned away anybody that wasn't 21.
Right.
And so there were going to be like some, like college kids coming out, and they were turning them away at the door because apparently this venue didn't like business. And there were 2 girls at the show. And one of them was this random girl. I can't remember her name, but we, for some reason, exchanged phone numbers. And she was just like texting me while we're on the road. And so I'm like,
and the thing is too, is like, if some girl like hits you up and like wants to get your number, you're like, oh yeah, dude, this is awesome. And then, what was so great is just like, she would just text you the most normal texts, like all the time.
Well, just the most normal, but also just the most just like just mundane shit you could ever imagine. I'm just like, why is this person trying to, it's like, I'm trying to communicate with my base functions. And I remember reading out some of the text messages to the group that became like lore. And one of them was, it was something, and I just kept reading it like she was the Forrest Gump of like trailer park chefs.
Talking about what she was going to have for dinner, make for dinner for her and her kid. Yeah,
and she's like, I like to cook different things sometimes. Tonight I think I'm going to make steak and asparagus and then potatoes and then possibly different potatoes. And then she says, I like potatoes, LOL.
Yes, and then so afterwards it was just like possibly different potatoes.
Possibly different potatoes. And then it turned into God. And then, dude, do you remember Party Load?
Oh yes, dude, Party Load.
Are you tired of the same old humdrum load?
Are you tired of the same old boring run-of-the-mill middle of the road load? Look no further than Party Load.
So I'll just tell people what that is, because they're probably just on the edge of their seats right now because they're trying to leave and not hear the rest of this. But Party Load was like this serum that you injected into your penis, and it like filled your balls with like different colors. So when you finally shot out that wax dart, yeah, it was some sort of like, it was just like all different kinds of color with like glitter in it and shit.
Yeah. And it's like, and if you order now, you get the flavors, and it would be like strawberry banana, passion fruit, grape. Like grape was always just like said haphazardly at the end. Passion fruit, grape.
Margarita Sundae. Grape.
Yeah, grape. And then check out different colors: neon orange, neon pink, confetti,
baby shit brown.
Ew. That's where the party stops, guys. But yeah, dude, Caleb, it was great to just ramble on with you for another episode. And so, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to my 2-part conversation with Caleb Hanks from The Clerk. Check out theclerkchronicles.com. Check out all of his projects, and we're going to have links all in the show description, all in the show notes here for all of that. Caleb, what do you have to say to the listeners as we wind down here?
Thank you for listening to my incessant rambling, and I hope you check out the music and the comic book, which is coming up soon. And thank you if you follow me or any of that stuff. And I love you, Sean. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Hey, I love you too, buddy. Where can people follow you on the internet, by the way? Do you have a Twitter for The Clerk or any of that sort of thing? Did I just put you on the spot?
Yeah, it's fine. I usually just do everything from like my Twitter or my Instagram, and it's just at Caleb Hanks, CalebHanks, and that's like all the shit. Most of the links are all on the clerkchronicles.com. So yeah, you can find me there.
All right, guys. And you can find me, of course, on YouTube, on Spotify, on Stitcher, on iTunes, on Facebook, on Instagram, wherever you want to find me, I'm there at Sean vs. Wild. And yeah, check me out here. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Caleb, thank you so much for joining me for 2 episodes. And guys, this has been the Sean vs. Wild podcast.
Thank you for listening, DNN.